Welcome to Capo. I hope you enjoy using it as much as we do. Capo can be as simple or as advanced as you want it to be. At the most basic level, you can use it just as a solo user to track your group's matches and then simply share the stats or match reports with your group using WhatsApp. You don't even need them to join the app. Or you can invite your players to the app so they can view their stats whenever they want and update their profiles. If you want to manage attendance using Capo and having the players reply in or out, then you'll definitely want to invite them to the app so they can respond to match invites. And you can, of course, set up payments for matches or even create paid season passes to charge players for a season. In this video, I'll go through all the ways you can set Capo up, from super simple to super powerful. To start with basic navigation, there are two views in the app. There's the admin view and the player view. You might just be the admin, but most admins play as well, so you can switch between the views using the hamburger menu at the top of the screen. There's also a help center with articles, as well as a Discord community link where you can post any bug reports or feature requests. I'm going to show you the most basic way to use Capo: setting up a season, adding players, and completing a match without anyone else involved. So we go to the admin section and go to the seasons tab. Here we can set up a new season. Seasons are just a period of time that the leaderboard covers. Our app works from, our group plays with annual leaderboards, so we set our seasons up from January the 1st to December the 31st. Half seasons are to keep the competition fresh if someone is running away with the title, so it splits halfway through the season, and the match reports will show current leaders for both half and whole seasons. If you delete a season, don't worry, it won't affect any of the match data and they aren't connected to payments. Seasons are simply a way of saying our competition runs during these dates. And if you update the seasons, then the stats will recalculate afterwards. So now we'll go to the player section in the admin and we can add or edit players here. As mentioned, you don't need to invite players to the app if you're just running Capo yourself. But if you do want to invite them, use the RSVP functionality or payments, you can simply click on the share button and get an invite link for your players. That's here. Or you can give them the club code. When the players click that link, they enter a few details like their phone number and screen name, and then their request to join will appear here for you, ready for you to accept them to your club. The reason we have that step is firstly so you have control over who signs up to your club. Secondly, so that if you've already set them up as a player, they might have played some matches, you can assign them to the correct player profile, which stops any duplicate players being created. So you add and edit players in the same way. Let's have a look at one. So you have the basic fields like name, phone number, email address. You can select the club they support, which adds the club badge to the leaderboards. And then you can, if you want, toggle a few options. You can set them to be a guest here. That means that they won't appear in any of the leaderboards. And we use that option to stop leaderboards getting overly long when you have people who come and might only play 1 or 2 games. You don't need to show them on the stats tables. When they're no longer playing, you can set them to retired. That means they will still appear in the all-time leaderboards and records, but they won't appear in the drop-down menus or receive notifications. And you can also set another player to be an admin user just like you. Finally, if you want to use your own player ratings to balance teams, it's entirely up to you, then you can click on player ratings to give your player ratings. These are all fairly self-explanatory and they're used for balancing teams, but I did want to flag that defending is willingness to defend, i.e. will a player sit back in a match, because you don't want a team where no one is willing to come back. In the overview screen, you can also see some information about the players here. These little flags show whether a player is active or retired, if a player has claimed their profile, if a player has downloaded the app, if they're set as a guest, and finally how many games they have played. You can toggle retired players on or off, they'll appear at the bottom of the list. And you can also switch to a stats view, which if you have entered the stats, it allows you to sort your players by the different stats so you can get a view of whether you've rated them fairly or not. Okay, let's set up a simple match. The date will default to the date of the last match plus a certain number of days, which you can set in the admin section. Of course, you can change any of the default match settings while you're creating the match. Team size is self-explanatory. We're going to set it to 6v6, and here we're going to select manual. This is where you are managing the ins and outs for the players yourself manually instead of asking Capo to do it. So we create the match, and if it's a manual match, it'll dive straight into the pool. Note there's also a history tab where you can edit matches that have been played. For example, if you entered an incorrect goal, after any match edit, the stats will automatically recalculate. So this part of the app is called the Match Control Center. In manual mode, you can simply add the players yourself. You can scroll and choose them, or you can enter some letters and find the players and enter them. So there's also the option to create a player directly inside of the Match Control Center right here. And so we'll go ahead and complete the match. Note that you can actually log the team with a slightly uneven number. Maybe you're having 4v3, 8v9 for example. That's also fine, happens sometimes in real life. So let's lock this one at 6v6 and proceed to the next screen. So this is the balancing screen, and we've got 3 different balancing options. Random is self-explanatory. Balance by player ratings uses scores that you've entered for the players when creating them, if you have entered them. You don't have to enter ratings for the players if you can't be bothered. After 5 games, the system will have a good idea of how to balance the teams and can do it before you using performance balancing. But at the start, it hasn't got any information to go on. So until 5 matches have been played, you'll either need to use player ratings or simply use random and balance the teams yourself until it's learned enough about the players. Balance by performance. This is where Capo balances the players based on how they've performed to date. It considers their whole player history within Capo, but it gives more weight to recent performances to account for form. You can adjust the intricate detail of how these methods work in the admin section, but I'd recommend for the time being just leaving them with default values. Most teams play with rotating goalkeepers, i.e. everyone has a go in goal, but if you play with fixed goalkeepers, you can set them in this screen, and they'll be placed on separate teams, and their leaderboard and player stats will be adjusted to reflect the fact they played as goalkeepers and not outfield players. So let's lock this and balance. This is the balancing screen where you can manually adjust the teams if you want to. The tornado diagram shows the current team balance, and it will change as you adjust players by dragging and dropping. If you've made changes and want to reset to the original balance, then you just check discard. And if you want to choose a different balance method, then you can click rebalance, and it'll give you the option to do it here. Once you're happy, you can click Save Teams, and that will send a notification to all players in the match that teams have been published, and they can open the app and see which team they're on. So now you've got the match set up, the teams balanced and published. If at any stage you need to go back a step, simply click the 3 dots here, and you can unlock the pool or edit the match and change the time of day. Once you've played the match, you can enter the result, clicking here, and this gives you a simple screen where you can enter who scored. So you can click on the team names, click between teams, and you can add goals to either players or own goals for unknown, for example. Sometimes a player might not have turned up for the game, in which case you can click this purple tick here to remove them or put them back again if they didn't turn up. And if the player actually played on a different team, you can click this arrow to move to swap between teams. So this allows you to change what happened on the actual day instead of having to go all the way back again. So we've moved him to the different team. It shows it's uneven, and you can bring him back again. If one player ended up playing as fixed goalkeeper for the whole match, you can also click the goalkeeper symbol here to stick him as fixed goalkeeper. And once you're happy with the result, click save, and then the stats will recalculate. And the match report will be ready in about 5 to 10 seconds, and everyone who played that match will be notified. So I wanted to cover RSVP mode and Auto-Pilot mode, which is how a lot of people use Capo. So with RSVP mode, this is where players reply in or out to matches. So you set up the match, they reply in or out, they can join a waiting list, for example, and they can use payments if you've got payments connected, and you still then balance and send out the teams at the end. So you've got full control. People are replying all week, you get to the match, whenever you fancy it, when you've got enough players, for example, during the week or anytime you want really, you can balance the match, choose how you want the players, and send out the teams. Autopilot. This is the same as RSVP, but fully automatic. So it'll automatically balance based on your chosen method. So it's basically set and forget. You set up the match on autopilot, you then do not have to touch it until the match happens. Players will book in and out, it'll manage the wait list, it'll send invites to players to say there's a spot available, do you want to sign up? If you've got tiered a system of A, B and C players with different priority, it'll organise that. As soon as it's got enough players, it'll automatically lock the pool, it'll automatically balance the teams and send those out. If a player drops out, it'll then ask for another player to join, it'll then rebalance the teams and send them out. You don't have to touch anything up till the actual match. So when you're happy and confident with the system and it's working fine, you can set it to autopilot. If we have a look at the match, it doesn't automatically jump into the match when you're in these modes because other people will be replying. There's nothing for you to do at that stage. So if we click into it here, we can have a look at it. It's very similar to the manual process. You can add players manually if you want. But say, for example, you want to add a player who you just need to make up numbers or something, you can add them here. But otherwise, the players will start to appear here as they select in or out. And there's a wait list here. If you can see who's on the wait list. And you can get notified. You can change in your notification settings whether you want to see every time someone joins or a more hands-off approach. You can pause here if you want to pause accepting bookings. You can also share the booking link with people so that when if they're, for example, not using the phone or don't have notifications sent on, you might have some people using the app, you might have some people not downloading the app or wanting to use it manually, in which case you can share the booking link on WhatsApp and they can go and book through the web app. And then down here will be an activity feed which will show you everything that happens during the match. So during the process. So player joins the waiting list or player signs up for the match, player pulls out, etc. And it's the same as the manual match process in the rest of it. It's just there's these different levels of automation that allow you to take a more hands-off approach. So this is the player area of the app, and this is using our live data. This is where the activity happens post-match. So you can see who played in the match, the score and who scored. And the system automatically awards certain badges but based on performance over the last few games. You can configure these in the admin section. So Grim Reaper for the worst performer over the last period set, I think for us we set to 45 days, and the player who's got the best form over those days. It'll also go through and come up with things like streaks, winning or winless streaks, unbeaten, current standings in the half season and whole season tables, and any personal records that people have done, 200th game, 100th game. Congratulations, Greg. Post-game voting, you can again turn this on or off, but you can vote for a certain amount of time after the game as to who you choose for men of the match, donkey of the day, or missing in action. And you can turn these individually on or off and set the period of time that voting is open for. When those have been awarded, there'll be a notification in the chat and those awards will appear here on the screen. Next section is upcoming matches. This is where team lineups will appear for any upcoming matches and where people will respond if you're using the RSVP to in or out for each different game. Then the stats tables. So we have overall the stats table. So this is for the half season, the points table, fantasy points that you can configure, and it will give you your form, points per games and similar. You can click here to see the scoring system that is used. The same for season, and then you have a goals table separately, which shows the top scorers, minutes per goal, and how they've done recently, and the race for the title. So this shows the top 5 players on the leaderboard and how they've been doing through the season. Season is very similar, just for the whole season, and you can also choose drop downs of previous years. We've got lots of data for previous years in there. Then there's all-time stats. So separate to seasons, this is for all the games played. As you can see, we've got some people who've played hundreds, and it's similar to the other tables. All these tables you can sort by the different metrics. And then we have feats. So this is records for most goals in a game, most undefeated streak, and if you beat one of these records, that will also appear in the match report. and then we have legends, which is the season champion and runners up for both point scoring and for goals. Players there's also the chat. The system messages are posted here when things like teams are published or match report is live. They'll also get a notification to the phone if you've got notifications set on. Player settings can be set here. So each player they can delete their account if they want. They can change their favorite club, and they can set which notifications they get. So whether they get push notifications for booking alerts, there's information here, or whether they want email instead or email a backup. And if you're admin, you can set your admin notifications here. For security, and then there's payments here. If you've got things like season passes set up, then people can purchase them here. If you're, for example, saying it's £80 for the season, and then you can play any game during that season, they can purchase them here, and there'll be a match ledger which shows them all the different payments that they have made. So this is the admin setup section. Some of you may never go in here. Some of you may want to customize it in intricate detail, entirely up to you. You've got the basics such as club name and your team names. You can manually refresh the stats. You'd probably only want to do that if, for example, you've changed a player name and want the leaderboard to update. Otherwise, the stats will automatically update whenever a match is changed, whenever the season changes, etc. So you would rarely need to use this. When you first create a match, or create any match, the default date there will be set to this value since the last match. So if you play on a weekly basis, leave that to 7. You can always change these things in the actual match creation process. Default team size is obvious. The balancing method that's used, which again you can change on any match you want to, and the default mode. Tiered booking. So if you're a club which has players who get priority, perhaps they pay more, or they've been at the club longer, you can activate this and have tier A, B and C, and change the hours after a match is created that people can sign up for the match. So for example, for a 24-hour period, your tier A players could sign up, and then your tier B, then tier C, and you can change each player's tier in the players setting window. When you've enabled this option, that will then become visible in the player section. And match payments, this will become clear when you set up payments. Voting. So after the match, you can set post-match voting to be on or off, and the individual awards. Some of you may not want to have Donkey of the Day or Missing in Action, so you can turn those on or off here, and you can set the duration after the match in hours for voting to be open before it closes. Advanced settings. So here you can change the fantasy points awarded for each different part of the result. We've tested these over 15 years now, so I think we've got a pretty good system. We've tailored it for every different scenario, but if you want to change those, you're more than welcome to in here. For example, we don't award points for goals scored because we think it encourages goal hanging, but you may want to. Stats tables. So this determines when streaks and milestones are shown in the match report. So for example, we say every game counts. So once someone's played a multiple of 25 games, it'll say they've played their 100th game or 125th game. Count goal streaks as 3 or more, because you don't want someone's streak of 1 goal in a game showing up on the match report. So you're welcome to configure these. Badges. These are the On Fire and Grim Reaper badges, which you can turn on or off again. So the system will decide who's been the best player over the last 45 days here, as long as they've played a minimum of 4 games, and automatically award those after the match. Those awards live with you until the next match, so every time there's a team sheet go out or similar, then that badge will appear by your name. And the record tables. This just says for the record tables, what's the match duration? For example, calculating minutes per goal. And this is how many games you need to be on the Hall of Fame table. So, for example, if you've got a match where you've got a group where you've got lots of players who've played hundreds of games like us, we might say for the Hall of Fame you've got to have played 50 matches to be on that table. Balancing. So there's 2 forms of balancing. There's the rating-based balancing, where you enter details about your players, for example, their stamina, their teamwork. And when it comes to balancing the teams, it balances them based on these different attributes. these are our default ones. You're welcome to play around with these and change how they do. So for example, for defenders, we don't worry about balancing on goal scoring, we just balance on stamina, pace, ball control, for example. If we use performance-based balancing, where the system looks back over your actual performance, then you can balance it to the player's power rating, which you can see in their player profile, or more goal threat, and so it's up to you how you want to configure those. I'd recommend just leaving them as the defaults. Templates are, so for example, for a five-a-side game, we say that when the team is being balanced, we balance it with one defender on each team, 2 midfielders and 2 attackers. Okay, here are the very basics of setting up payments. Click here in your payment section to complete your Stripe setup. I'm going to go in. That runs you through some Stripe screens, adds for a few basic details like name, phone number, etc. And that's all operated by Stripe. And then as soon as you're done, should take 5 minutes, brings you back to here and you're all set up. This screen shows you how many bookings you've had this month, the revenue from it, and any pending refunds. So you've refunded for someone for their game and it's pending. History will show you a history of your payments so far. With the Stripe account, you can connect again from here. You can go to your Stripe dashboard if you ever for some reason wanted to go to that, or even disconnect your Stripe. And season passes. Season passes is where if you, instead of operating a per match fee, although you can operate both, you want to set up someone to pay for a season, for example, January to December. And then you can set your matches so that they can access any match during that period for free because they've paid for their pass. You can also set up matches so that some people have season passes to pay for their matches and other people who don't can pay on a per game basis. It's up to you. Creating a pass, just give it a name, anything that reflects what it is, 2026 season for example. Description for players to see. These will appear in their player area for them to be available to buy. This is the price you receive after Stripe fees. You can limit sales if you want to, say there's only 10 of these passes available, for example, and these are the valid from a valid to date. So when someone buys a pass, it'll be valid for these different date periods.